I made a video on the 7 best versions of Ronaldo. I made a video on the 7 best versions of Messi. And yep, this is basically picking the top 7, or rather 8, spoilers, of the total of those 14. Simple enough. 7 best versions of Messi / Ronaldo. Let's roll on. Number 7, Messi 12-13, aka anything you can do, I can do on one leg. I just couldn't leave this one out, man. I mean, how do you leave out a man who amassed a myriad of mingling and messed up mix of muscle niggles and still managed to masterfully maneuver his way through and not only put up the greatest minutes to goals ratio in La Liga history, but also took Barcelona to their highest points tally in La Liga history. And let's not forget, he slapped up Milan and PSG in the UCL too. This is making it for the sheer badass factor alone, if nothing else. Number 6, Ronaldo 07-08, aka the toughest league in the what now? And next up we have where the English Premier League's long-standing reputation of suffering no fools when it comes to Latin flair players was all but destroyed by Old Trafford's early 20s Titan trickster who tore teams to tatters and twinkle-toed his way to triumph in both England and Europe. And by the way, add this to the list of CR7 related revisionist history that f***ing annoys me. Why do people keep saying this was a front 3? It wasn't. Ronaldo in 07-08, much like he did in the previous 4 seasons, was starting from wide midfield. But the differences were, this season he had a lot more freedom in staying further up when his team was defending and getting in the box when attack was initiated from the other side. But that still doesn't change the fact that he spent the majority of times in games out wide, either trying to put in a cross if he was on the right or trying to cut in and get involved in the link up if he was on the left. The last time I checked, that was still 4-4-2. But yeah, anyways, unbelievable year. And if I'm not mistaken, one of the first and to date probably only seasons where a skillful player who relied on trickery and embarrassing other players was able to do his thing in the Premier League and still finish the season with both legs firmly attached to his body. I mean, granted he needed surgery immediately after, but you get me. I mean, bro, it was genuinely impressive how he escaped being completely butchered. Never mind the 42 goals and Champions League triumph, that I say is the real reason why he's on here. Number 5, Messi 10-11 / Ronaldo 11-12, aka the magician for the big occasion / the robot that showboats. And now we have the tie I alluded to in the intro. Cause yep, the competition on this list is what Messi seems to make most of you YouTube commenters stiff. And listen, I've said this before, but while most people just seem to drool at as usual magic from 10-11, what impresses me even more is that this was easily Messi's greatest season when it comes to delivering in the big games. Be it Arsenal, Atletico, Real, United and everyone in between, they were all just names for the great man, they were all just numbers for the great man. And well, you know everything I just said about Messi 10-11 right there? Well, I'd say the vast majority of it does apply to Ronaldo 11-12, but the difference was, you know, Ronnie did it his way. Like, I don't know how many of you are familiar with old school heavyweight boxing, but hey, if you want, let me educate you on 2 of the biggest powerhouses in history. So Messi 2011 was like a prime Mike Tyson. Work with me. He moved around so much with such speed and precision, bamboozling them by hitting them from so many different directions. Ronaldo in 11-12 was like a prime George Foreman. There's no other way to say it than he just went through his opponents as quickly as possible. Be it just dusting them with his sprinter's pace, hitting a 30-yarder out of the blue, or magically turn up anywhere and everywhere the ball was. And much like Big George back in the day, you knew what he was gonna do, you were prepared for what was coming. Yet, there was nothing you could do about it. And for those of you to whom this made precisely 0 sense, well, I'll put it in terms that you would understand. Messi 10-11 was basically a modernized Maradona. Ronaldo in 11-12 was basically a roided Gareth Bale. So, again, very close, and as is the case with these guys on many occasions, it's simply just down to preference. Number 4, Ronaldo 15-16, aka the original mentality monster. For the pure baller hippies out there, this entry will probably raise the most eyebrows. But just remember, I judge footballers, you know, the right way. That is how well they do the job they're given and in turn positively impact their team. And with that in mind, there are very, very few versions of any player you would rather have in your team when the chips were down than CR7 15-16. This was the first season where the unbreakable mindset he is now renowned for first showed itself in its full form, and his journey of proving people wrong was truly something special to view. pretty much every memorable moment from that season is basically him making the critics eat their words, i.e. being told he can't function under Benitez and then scoring 5 in a game for the second time in his career, as well as breaking his own, not Van Nistelrooy's, UCL group stage record, being booed by his own fans for a first half performance against Celta Vigo and then scoring 4 in the second, being questioned on European away goals and then turning Florenzi inside out, responding to comments about him slowing down after turning 31 as he hadn't scored against a top 6 team by not only finding the net twice versus Bilbao but also putting up a throwback display to go with it, only for the narrative to switch to he hasn't scored against a big team, whatever the fuck that means. Turns out it didn't matter either way, as he then went on to silence the Camp Nou once more and score a hat-trick against Wolfsburg inside a fortnight, being criticised for disappearing in the opening 2 games of Euro 2016, only to then turn in an all-round elite performance versus Hungary to drag Portugal to the knockout stages, not to mention then going on to do something else which no one thought was possible, winning that year's European Championships and doing so as the team's captain, best player, top scorer, top assister, assistant manager, one-legged cheerleader. Basically, he was there. And finally, the most egg-in-your-face one of all, being told he'll never win another Ballon d'Or again, only to then not just top the podium, but do so by a record landslide. What a man. Number 3, Messi 11-12, aka the choice of the number crunchers. This had to be in the top 3. I mean, purely for the fact that out of every single season turned in by the 2 greatest footballers ever when it comes to stats, this season stands head and shoulders above them all, and in some ways, it's not even close. And listen, I described one of the earlier Messi entries as a modernized Maradona, and one of the earlier Ronaldo entries as Gareth Bale on steroids. But you know what this Messi season was? It was the Barca edition of the 3-peat CR7. Check this. So CR7 in his latter Madrid days, while not strictly a centre forward, shifted all his focus to end product, loitered anywhere along the front line, and was a goal threat pretty much every single time he looked at the general direction of the goal. That was Messi in 11-12, but you know, Barcelona-ized. So naturally he'll be a false 9, he'll get a lot more possession, meaning he'll get a lot more opportunities to score, as well as complete more passes and dribbles, etc. That is pretty much exactly what happened, and boy what a ride it was. Number 2, Messi 14-15, aka the best pure footballer. Basically, think of all the forwards you regularly hear shouts of being all-time greats. Think of their single greatest attributes. And no joke, Leo in 14-15 either matched it, at the very least came close to matching it, or on 1 or 2 occasions, even topped it. He had Maradona-like dribbling, Pele-like all-round forward play, Cruyff-like footballing IQ, and a best-like grace whenever he got on the ball. And look, if you're a younger fan, I understand you may think I'm exaggerating, but seriously, in pretty much every single game, he did at least 2 things that made you resort to just scratching your head. And you see, unlike the early years like 10-11, these head-scratching instances weren't just limited to his dribbling either. They also came in the form of stuff like seeing a pass before anyone else in the stadium, managing to get a shot away with both power and accuracy despite being surrounded till no end. So basically, everything certain Messi fans over-exaggerate about him, in 2014-2015, he really did all that, and he did it consistently. And if he even had a touch of Ronaldo's physicality on top of all that, for me this would have been the single greatest version of any footballer we've ever seen, and most likely the single greatest version of any footballer there's ever been. But the truth is, he didn't, did he? He didn't have a touch of Ronaldo's physicality. But you know who did? You know who had more than a touch of Ronaldo's physicality? Number 1, Ronaldo 13-14, aka the ultimate footballer. He had all the qualities of Messi's 14-15, most of them admittedly on a slightly lower level, but more than compensated with his unrivaled athletic dimension. Never have we ever seen one version of a player possess pretty much all the qualities required to be an elite attacker, while also bringing in shit we've never even seen before. And well, in what I'm guessing was God's way of showing us that mere mortals simply can't sustain this shit, he was eventually brought back down to earth with those knee troubles. And despite Ronnie even post those issues going on to destroy teams in both Spain and Europe, he was never quite the same again. But it doesn't mean it didn't happen though, doesn't mean he didn't do all that damage, doesn't mean he didn't reach that level, doesn't mean he didn't showcase what was for me the single greatest version of any player we've ever seen, and most likely the single greatest version of any footballer there's ever been. And that is that. Agree or disagree beats indifference. So what do you think of this list? Are there any other Messi and or Ronaldo seasons that I've missed out? Let me know in the comments below. And as usual, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Till next time, you keep rolling.